welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into something important in software, accessibility testing.
Right.
We've got a bunch of material here, explanations, some really good examples, and, the solid reasons why you should probably care about this. Think of this as like the quick guide to making the digital world work for everyone.
Mm-hmm. And accessibility testing, well, in simple terms, it's just making sure software can actually be used by people with disabilities. It's a really key part of usability testing overall.
Exactly. And, when we say disabilities, it's easy to overlook the tech people rely on every day. Things like speech recognition.
Yeah, or screen readers.
Screen readers that read out what's on the screen, magnification tools, even special keyboard.
Totally. So our kind of mission for this deep dive is to unpack what accessibility testing really means in practice.
Okay.
Why it's not just some, optional extra, but actually pretty fundamental for anyone building software or websites today.
All right, let's jump right in then. Why? Why is this so critical? What's the main driver?
Well, okay, the first massive reason is just market reach. Think about this stat. Around 20% of the population has some kind of disability.
20%, that's huge.
It is. And dig a bit deeper, it's like 1 in 10 people with a severe disability. And then look at older folks. 1 in 2 people over 65 have reduced capabilities.
Wow. And these disabilities, they cover a lot of ground, right? Blindness, deafness.
Oh, yeah. Blindness, hearing issues, physical handicaps, various body disorders. It's a wide spectrum. So if your software isn't built with these users in mind, you're potentially missing out on connecting with this massive group of people. Accessibility testing finds the roadblocks.
Or fix the issues, reach more users, makes sense from a business angle too, not just, the right thing to do.
Exactly. It's smart business.
Okay, so market reach is number one. What else? You mentioned legal stuff earlier.
Ah, yes. The legal side. This is a big one. Governments all over the world have laws now, legislation, that specifically requires IT products to be accessible.
Right. Can you give some examples?
Sure. So in the U.S., you've got the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, that goes way back to 1990.
Okay.
The U.K. has its Disability Discrimination Act from 1995. Australia's got one from 92. Ireland, the Disability Act of 2005.
So this isn't optional advice. It's actually baked into law in many places.
Pretty much. You need to comply if you want to operate there, which leads directly to the third reason.
Avoiding getting sued.
Bingo. Avoiding lawsuits. We've seen some really big companies, Fortune 500 companies, get sued because their websites or products weren't accessible.
Really? Like who?
Well, the National Federation for the Blind, the NFB, took on Amazon back in 2007. Same year, Sexton and the NFB versus Target. That was another big one. And even earlier, like 1999, there was a settlement between the NFB and AOL.
Wow, okay. Amazon, Target, AOL. Those are household names. So building accessible products isn't just good practice or legal compliance.
It's risk management. It avoids potentially huge financial hits and, damage to your reputation.
Okay, that paints a very clear picture. Market reach, legal compliance, avoiding lawsuits, powerful reasons.
Definitely. So we know why it's important. But to do it right, you need to understand who you're testing for. What kinds of disabilities are we actually supporting here?
Yeah, because it's not just one group, is it? It sounds like a really diverse set of needs.
It really is.
Yeah.
We can break it down into a few main categories. First, you've got vision disabilities.
Okay.
That includes everything from complete blindness to different types of color blindness, low vision, even sensitivity to flashing or strobe effects on screen.
Right. Covers a lot visually. Then physical disability.
Yep. Things like maybe someone can't use a mouse easily, or maybe only uses one hand for the keyboard, or perhaps they have limited motor control, shaky hands, muscle slowness, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Got it.
And then there are cognitive disabilities.
Correct. This is another broad area. Could be learning difficulties, maybe problems with memory, or difficulty processing really complex information or tasks. And tied into that sometimes are literacy disabilities, like reading difficulties.
Okay. And the last main category.
Hearing disabilities. So deafness or being hard of hearing, where understanding audio content is the challenge. Keeping this whole spectrum in mind is, well, it's key.
All right. So knowing the why and the who, let's get to the how. How do we actually do accessibility testing? What are the approaches?
Fundamentally, there are two main ways: manual testing and automated testing. You often need a mix of both.
Okay. And I guess it must be tricky if you, as a tester, don't personally have that disability. It's hard to truly simulate the experience, right?
That's a really, really important point. It is hard. You can follow checklists, use tools, but fully grasping the barriers someone faces. It's tough without firsthand experience.
So involving users with disabilities in testing is probably best. Absolutely invaluable. Their feedback, their insights on what actually works or doesn't work for them,
Yeah.
you can't beat that.
Makes sense. So let's break it down by disability type again. How would you test for, say, complete blindness?
Right. For someone who's blind, the main tool is usually a screen reader. This software basically reads out everything on the screen: text, links, button labels, image descriptions, you name it.
It's like an audio version of the interface.
Exactly. So imagine using JWS, a popular screen reader, to go to Google. It might announce, Mozilla Firefox start page. You navigate to the address bar. It says address bar. Type google.com. It reads each letter.
Okay.
Page loads. It announces google.com homepage. Move to the search box. It says Google search. It guides the user through audio cues.
That's fascinating. But what if the website isn't designed well? What happens then?
That's the problem. If the site's code is messy or it doesn't use proper tags, the screen reader gets confused. It might read a button label just as button without saying what it does, or skip over important links entirely.
So the user just gets stuck or misses crucial information.
Precisely. It becomes inaccessible, frustrating.
Okay. What about other vision issues like color blindness?
Right. Color blindness means difficulty seeing certain colors. Red-green is common, red-blue too. So if your website relies only on color to convey information, say, red text for required fields.
Someone who can't distinguish red might miss it completely.
Exactly. You need more than just color. The sources suggested, for instance, outlining that red text maybe in black, or using an icon like an asterisk. Some other visual cue.
So redundancy is key. Don't rely solely on color.
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
Black and white generally work well, but combining color with other indicators is safest.
And for low vision, people who can see but not clearly or need things magnified.
Two big things there. One, avoid tiny text. Seems obvious, but you'd be surprised.
Right.
Two, the website must support zooming properly. Users need to be able to magnify the screen without the layout completely breaking, text overlapping, or buttons disappearing off screen.
Yeah, that responsive design aspect seems critical. If zooming makes it unusable, it defeats the purpose.
Totally.
Okay, let's shift to physical disabilities. Someone who can't use a mouse, for example.
For them, keyboard accessibility is everything. Everything, interactive links, buttons, form fields, menus, pop-ups, must be reachable and usable with just the keyboard. Usually the tab key, arrow keys, enter, spacebar.
So you should be able to navigate the entire site without touching the mouse.
That's the goal. Think of someone paralyzed maybe who relies on keyboard input, and tied to this is alt text again.
For images?
Images, yes, but also audio and video controls if they're custom. Screen readers need that text description. And ARIA attributes accessible rich internet applications help provide context about complex widgets.
Okay.
Also important. Clear keyboard shortcuts for common actions, and a really visible focus indicator. When you hit tab, you need to clearly see which element is currently selected.
Right, that little dotted line or highlighted box needs to be obvious.
Very obvious. Especially for low vision users too, actually.
Makes sense. Okay, last category. Hearing disabilities. Deaf or hard of hearing users.
Right. So visually, the website's usually fine for them. The issue comes with audio or video content.
Like tutorial videos or podcasts embedded on the site.
Exactly. For those, you need alternatives. Captions for videos are crucial, accurate, synchronized captions. And for audio-only content, a written transcript is the way to go. It's about providing the same information through a different sense site instead of hearing.
Equivalent experience. Got it.
Yeah. So, okay, we've covered specific needs. How does this translate into actual testing? Like, what specific things are testers looking for? Maybe instead of just a long list, we can pick a few key test cases and talk about why they matter.
Good idea. Let's start with that keyboard navigation one again. What's a concrete test?
Okay, so a core test is, can I do everything with the keyboard that I can do with the mouse? A tester will literally unplug their mouse or just not use it and try to navigate the entire site. Can they reach every link, activate every button, fill out every form field, submit the form, use drop-downs, interact with sliders or custom controls? If they hit a dead end where only a mouse click works, that's a fail.
Right. And you mentioned documentation earlier. How does that fit in?
Well, think about help files or user guides.
Right.
Are they accessible? Can a screen reader navigate them easily? Are there clear headings? Is the language simple and direct?
Okay.
If the documentation itself is a confusing wall of text or uses inaccessible formats, then even if the software is okay, the user might not be able to figure out how to use it effectively.
So the support material needs testing too. And what about that tab order? Why is the order so important?
Yeah. Imagine tabbing through a login form. You expect to go from username to password to the login button, right?
Yeah, logical flow.
What if heading tab jumped you from username straight to a forgot password link, then maybe back up to the password field, then over to some random link in the footer?
That would be incredibly confusing and annoying.
Exactly. Even if all the elements are technically reachable by keyboard, if the order doesn't make sense visually or logically, it's basically unusable for a keyboard-only user. So testers tab through everything to check that the focus moves predictably.
Okay, those examples really drive it home. Now, are there tools to help with all this? It sounds like a lot to check manually.
Yes, definitely. Manual testing, especially with real users, is vital. But tools can speed things up and catch common issues. There are some really good ones.
Like what?
Well, Wave is a popular one. It's a browser extension. Free from WebAIM. You run it on a page, and it visually flags potential accessibility issues right there in the browser. Good for checking internal pages, too, since it runs locally.
Okay, Wave, Fear. What else?
There's TAW, Test Accessibility Web. That's an online tool. You give it a URL, and it analyzes the page against guidelines like WCAG, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. It categorizes issues, priority levels. Pretty comprehensive.
Those are the main standards, right?
Yeah, the W3C Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. Most tools test against those. Another one for Chrome users is Accessibility Developer Tools. It integrates right into the Chrome DevTools panel that you run audits.
Handy for developers.
Very. Then there's Quick Accessibility Page Tester. It's simpler, more like a bookmark let you click for a quick check. Highlights potential issues, points out where ARIA might help.
ARIA, again, for richer descriptions for assistive tech.
Right. And if you want to sort of simulate visual impairments, IBM has a tool called A Designer. It tries to show you how a page might look to someone with low vision or color blindness.
How interesting, like putting yourself in their shoes visually.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
And for screen reader simulation, there's Web and Anywhere. It's browser-based, so you don't need to install JWS or NVDA to get a basic idea of how a screen reader interacts with your page.
Useful for quick checks.
Yeah. And one more, the Web Accessibility Toolbar, WAT.
Mm.
It's an older one, works in IE and Opera, I think. Has various features like a grayscale view to help spot contrast problems.
Okay, so quite a few tools to explore there. Now, with specialized fields like this, myths tend to pop up. What are some common misconceptions about accessibility testing?
Oh yeah, there are definitely a few. A big one is making accessible websites is super expensive.
And the reality?
The reality is, if you build accessibility in from the start, think about it during design, during development, it's way cheaper. Trying to bolt it on at the very end, that's when it gets expensive and causes rework.
So planning ahead saves money. What's another myth?
That fixing an existing inaccessible site is always this massive, time-consuming, costly project. And while, yes, some sites need a lot of work, you don't always have to fix everything at once. You can often prioritize, focus on the biggest barriers first, make incremental improvements. It doesn't have to be a giant, immediate overhaul.
Okay, prioritize the essentials. I've also heard the one that accessible sites are just boring, like plain text only.
Right. That's a classic myth. Totally untrue. Accessible design can be beautiful, modern, interactive. The W3C actually discourages text-only versions. It's about making the rich experience accessible, not stripping it down.
Good design and accessibility aren't mutually exclusive then?
Not at all. They should go hand in hand. And the last big myth, that accessibility is only for blind people or, a small group of disabled users.
But it helps everyone, right?
Exactly. Following accessibility guidelines, clear navigation, good structure, readable text, captions improves usability for everyone. Think about using a site on your phone in bright sunlight or in a noisy environment where you can't hear audio. Good accessibility practices often just make for a better user experience overall.
So it's really universal design principles, in a way. Better for the target group, but also better for all users.
So much, yeah.
Okay, so wrapping up our deep dive here, what's the main thing we should take away about accessibility testing?
I think the core message is that it's about making sure our digital world, our apps, our websites, are genuinely usable by as many people as possible. And that definitely includes people with disabilities.
Yeah.
It might seem complex sometimes, and yes, maybe sometimes the easiest route seems like building a separate accessible version, though that's often not ideal. But fundamentally, it's about inclusion.
So, to quickly recap, accessibility testing is vital for reaching more people, for staying legal, avoiding lawsuits. It means understanding different disabilities, testing specifically for those needs. Keyboard navigation, screen readers, captions, zoom, color contrast.
Using the tools available.
Using the tools involving users, and remembering that good accessibility often just means good usability for everyone.
Well put.
So that leaves us, and you, our listener, with something to think about. Given how much of our lives happen online now, how much we rely on digital tools, what's the real responsibility of creators and developers here? How responsible are we for making sure these digital experiences are truly open to everyone, regardless of ability? And looking forward, what other innovations might be out there? What haven't we thought of yet to make technology truly universal and easy for absolutely anyone to use?